2022, the Miami Heat came off a season in which they finished with the best record in the East. Following that, they made the conference finals. And although they did play well in the conference finals, they were only one shot away from the finals. As in Game 7, Jimmy Butler could have taken them to that place. He missed it though, and a lot of things would change. Not for the Miami Heat, but for the rest of the league. The Miami Heat played that series like any other series they're in, and any series like they're in this year. A defensive battle where that's all they do well, and they keep the other team to low points so that they can stay in the game. It kind of reminds me of like the Thousands Pistons teams, where some of these games are just so disgusting. Both teams ending the game with around 80 to 90 points, and the Heat are just slugging out a defensive battle. And that's how they've done it in this year's playoffs. But after that Eastern Conference Finals, we knew that there were changes to the Miami Heat that needed to be made if they wanted to take that next stride as an NBA team. Their third to seventh leading scorers in that series all shot 30% or worse from the field. The Miami Heat as a team, who was known for their three-point shooting in the regular season and in previous years, like when they made the finals against the Lakers, only shot 30% from three in the series. Their big off-season pickup from a few years ago that they also extended for $30 million a year, Kyle Lowry, finished the series shooting 28% from the field, 27% from three on 9 points per game with a 43% true shooting percentage. It was not looking the best for the Heat considering how poorly their new pickups performed in the conference finals. Jimmy Butler single-handedly carried them to a Game 7. Following this conference finals loss, Pat Riley did basically absolutely nothing. Their offseason additions / trade deadline decisions from that time were forward Nikola Jovic, who is a reserve for the Heat for most of the year, a backup center in Cody Zeller, and forward Kevin Love, who's a solid rotation piece. One guy is serviceable in Kevin Love, but you don't get three-point shooting that you were missing out on. You don't get star power that you were probably missing out on. You don't get anything that you needed in the conference finals. And the Eastern Conference in that offseason was no slump. I mean, the Celtics added depth with Malcolm Brogdon, who would eventually win Sixth Man of the Year for the Boston Celtics. There was a motivated Nets team with a healthy Kyrie and Kevin Durant and more depth around them like Royce O'Neal. The Cleveland Cavaliers added a star in Donovan Mitchell, a guy that would average around 30 points per game in each postseason for the Utah Jazz that is now in a system that seems like they can use him a lot. The New York Knicks inked Jalen Brunson to a big, lucrative deal, and it pays off. He was their best player in the playoffs, averaging 30 points a game in the Heat series, and had a great regular season for the New York Knicks. Atlanta even trades for DeJounte Murray, which now doesn't look too good in hindsight, but back then in the day, it looked pretty good. You get a lockdown shooting guard right next to your point guard, Trae Young, who definitely needs it, and another playmaker that the Hawks kind of needed in years past. And the Milwaukee Bucks had a dominating regular season, as at one point they were 8 games behind the Boston Celtics for the conference lead, and they come all the way back and finish with the first seed in the East. And in the early going, Miami Heat felt the return of what they did in the offseason, which was nothing. They didn't pass 500 until the 70-game mark. As a playoff team, as a finals team, if you're going to make the finals, you're passing 500 within the first few weeks, and they didn't do it until the 70-game mark. The Miami Heat were 27th in three-point percentage at 34% from three, while being 10th in attempts. They were putting up some of the most attempts in the league while not being able to make any of them. They were 30th in points per game, the worst offense in the league. Their point differential over the year, they lost by 25 points over 82 games. Yes, that's about 0.3 points a game. But look, the Miami Heat did not outscore their opponents and still made the playoffs. They finished 44 and 38 while being 26th in field goal percentage and 21st in two-point percentage, and somehow squeeze out a play-in appearance. In the first game, they faced the Atlanta Hawks, and they lose. They lose to the Atlanta Hawks, which they were big favorites over, because Atlanta, the whole season, although they had a good season, was not expected to make the playoffs. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young doesn't look like it was gelling to start. Their depth was terrible. Clint Capella was a walking cone on defense, which was a lot different than what he was in his Rockets days. And just like that, they're in a play-in game against the Chicago Bulls, one that they had to win. And guess what? Going into the fourth quarter, the Miami Heat were struggling to put away the Chicago Bulls. Kobe White was the biggest player that was killing the Miami Heat at one point in this season. And at one point in this season, DeJounte Murray bested Jimmy Butler. The only team to be undefeated against the Miami Heat in the postseason so far this year, the Atlanta Hawks. After beating the Bulls, from that point on, we would see a complete shift in how the Miami Heat played basketball. In the first round, in the first game, I was watching that game live. I had a feeling that the Miami Heat could beat the Bucks. We simply looked better than the Bucks that whole game. And guess what? In the third quarter, Tyler Hero goes down with a wrist injury that would sideline him the rest of the playoffs. Then, I thought it was over. The leading scorer for the Miami Heat goes down. There's no way that they win any more games in this series, let alone in the playoffs. And guess what? Duncan Robinson, the guy that was completely shut down the whole season, he got almost no minutes the whole season because of how pissed Erik Spoelstra was at him, considering how bad he was on defense. All of a sudden gets slid into the starting lineup and is getting big minutes. And he finishes the series shooting 74% from 3 and 71% on pull-up threes that series. 74% from 3. The Heat, the rest of that series, shoot 45% from 3, outscore the number 1 Bucks by an average of 11 points per game per win, and they are the first 8 seed to ever beat a 1 seed in less than 6 games. And they did it in dominating fashion. By game 4, everybody knew the Bucks had no chance of coming back in this series. In the second round, the Miami Heat faced up against the New York Knicks. And from game 1, it seemed like the Miami Heat were doing the exact same thing. Dominating on defense, getting by on offense, and Jimmy Butler clutch play. And it was working. Until Jimmy Butler messes up his ankle in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler turns his ankle and essentially sits in the corner for the rest of the game, and the Miami Heat pull it out with clutch plays from Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, and Bam Adebayo. Later on that series, Jimmy Butler will sit for game 2, and the rest of the way it was the Miami Heat. As every single game that the Knicks lost, they failed to put up over 101 points, and they lose in 6 games to the Miami Heat. Obviously, the biggest people up to that point to give them a challenge were the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks. So going into a series against the number 2 seeded Boston Celtics, well, everybody thought that the Celtics were going to win. Jayson Tatum just recently came off a record-breaking 50-plus point game against the Sixers in a Game 7 to take them to the conference finals. Miami Heat's offense didn't look as good as the Celtics, and all of a sudden at one point they are up 3-0. Now yes, the series is now 3-2, but to see what the Miami Heat have done despite seeing all this adversity throughout the year is impressive. I'm pretty sure they're going to make the finals because I think that whole 3-0 record, 150-0 teams, I think that is valid and the Miami Heat will reach the finals. I don't want to jinx the Miami Heat, and I hope to not. But with all that being said, a team that didn't pass 500 until the 70-game mark might be in the finals this year. This type of turnaround isn't seen in basketball. It simply isn't. And the Miami Heat might have just pulled it off. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Hey, come on, I got a bag on me. You try to take it, leave you stinking like your last homie. Shit kinda cakey, little baby, put that ass on me. But I ain't that horny, do you got some cash for me? Why every time you ask him that, bitches act funny. And you keep trying to hold the strap, you won't slap for me. You too happy, I can tell you never had money. Every time you get on live, gotta flash money.